Okay, we're rolling.
Sweet. Hey, who are you?
I'm Benincasa. I'm the lead evangelist for Windows Gaming and Graphics Technologies.
Cool, Brian. And we're here at Microsoft Meltdown 2005, and as I understand it, this is the 10th time Microsoft has gathered gaming developers and software and hardware vendors to have this conversation. How has the event changed over the last 10 years?
Oh yeah, you're correct. It is the 10th, and very, very happy to be here. In the beginning, it was not as structured as it is today. It was much more of a bringing the industry together to focus on gaming and graphics for the Windows platform. At the time, Windows was just in the Windows 95 era, and DirectX was just coming onto the horizon. A lot of people would bring titles that they were developing for Windows, or even DOS at the time. They would bring those titles to Meltdown, and the hardware vendors of the day would show up, be it chip manufacturers, OEMs, graphics vendors, audio vendors too. They would show up and basically put the hardware together, see how the things worked. The game guys would jam with the hardware guys about what they could do better on that specific piece of hardware. The hardware guys would tell the game guys about what new things they had coming on. And it was a big evangelism effort that was very good. Everybody kind of got to do a big show and tell and show off their latest and greatest stuff. And Microsoft put itself at the nexus point for that, just incubated the platform very, very successfully with those developers and with those hardware partners.
Was it actually called something else? Has it always been Meltdown, or?
It's always been Meltdown. Earlier on, there were some other events that the DirectX team actually held, but the event as we know it today has always shall be Meltdown.
Sweet. So you played a part in actually putting the tracks together, and so now, as you've pointed out, it's become a little more organized, so there are actual tracks that people can attend. How did you decide which tracks to have this year?
So the planning that goes on for an event like this begins months ago, maybe even as long as a year ago in some cases. Our events people, to get the logistics and the facilities, everything takes place almost a year ahead of time. Myself and my teammates, my colleagues, and the people around the Windows Gaming and Graphics organization, we get together probably about, for this event I think we started about 5 months ago, and we got together and we do some initial brainstorming sessions amongst ourselves about what are the things that are applicable. Well, obviously graphics is a very, very big innovation portion of our story, and just a very big place where we make a lot of investments, so that obviously needs to be covered. Visual Studio is another piece of the puzzle here, and we had them here last year for Meltdown 04. Very, very successful reception for them, so we have them back, and we decided we need to have them. We also have a general Windows track, and this year with the focus on Vista, the next version of Windows that's coming later next year, we wanted to make sure that as part of the general Windows track that we have that covers the platform, we also have a second day just breakaway session or series of sessions that are just solely focused on Vista. So we get together, we talk about these things, we jam about them, we decide what needs to be there, and there's a lot of meetings. I've heard rumor, and I believe it, that pretty much an hour of content, an event like this takes about a man or woman day of work to put together, and that would be, I would say that would be pretty conservative. I think going well beyond that is probably what happens if you take the brainstorming sessions, the time it takes to work with somebody to get an abstract, a bio, the speaker stuff, the slides together, do a lot of dry runs behind the scenes. There's a lot that happens to get an event like this put together, and just to get it run smoothly. So my role in this was working with the track coordinator. So every track had an individual who was responsible for working with the people who were presenting the sessions, getting their materials in on time, and really I was the person who was just coordinating things, but the real credit belongs with the track coordinators, the people who worked with the people who presented, day in and day out, who just helped them get their slides in, and that's a lot of work too. If you're working with Visual Studio, you're working with Windows, you're working with DirectX, these people ship a product. They're shipping products right now. They're shipping the SDK, they're shipping Windows, and events. It's one of these things where it's looming. It might take priority at some point, and then you really just got to keep on them, and you got to keep reminding them that these things need to be done. And it eventually happens, but getting the product teams to move to events is a tricky thing, but it's something that, again, the track coordinators were very, very successful doing this year.
Were there any sort of 2 or 3 topics that were top of mind that you knew the gaming developers would want to hear about this year?
Absolutely. I mean, pretty much when you look at developing games for a Windows PC, I mean, there's 3 things you really need. You need the operating system, you need Windows, so that's just always obvious. You need the graphics and gaming API, which in our case is DirectX, and you need the actual development suite, which is Visual Studio. So those 3 were just like no-brainers. We need to have them in. And then apart from that, you start to look at breakouts. You look at the general Windows track and you say, well, there's a lot there. We want to talk about performances and optimization on current gen stuff, but we also want to talk about next gen stuff. And we should probably have a separate track for that. Last year we also introduced the publisher and business development track, which was very, very successful as well. Great panels there. It's not really key to developing games, but it's key to the industry, and it's key to the people that come to this event to get something besides just nuts and bolts game development, to get a little bit broader perspective as to the industry and how the pulse is going and how people are marketing platforms and the ESRB and what's their update and different things like that. So that's how it worked out this year. Pretty good.
So I actually attended the SDK session. Now, is this something that a new SDK that's just come out that folks can go and find out more about?
It's actually the DirectX SDK. It's released every couple months now.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the other one's coming very, very soon, as of the time of this taping. Should be heading out. That'll be the August DirectX 9 SDK update. There'll be another one every couple of months, so October, December, hopefully.
Okay.
Schedules permitting, and yeah.
So we have all types of developers who sort of come to Channel 9 and hang out there, not just gaming developers. And let's say I am just sort of a regular, developing enterprise applications, and I decide, wow, I want to do a garage business around gaming and maybe get into that. If you were just starting out, where would you point folks to get specifically knowledge on and tools for developing for games?
I guess it would depend on, my question back to that person would be, where does your passion lie? Are you content focused, which means are you more focused on creating animations and art and music and audio? Or are you more production focused? Are you interested in being a producer or a PR person? Or are you more just developer, nuts and bolts, coding focused? And in that case, are you a graphics person or a networking person or whatever? But there's all kinds of entry points into gaming, and really it just comes back to what they want to do. It's, if you were an enterprise person, then you probably have a lot of experience with web-based things, web services, and database things. Well, given the advent of the online space being such a big boom, especially on Windows with the massively multiplayer online games, there's a huge demand for database people in gaming. So if your interest was there, sure, you could kick off there. I would encourage anybody. There's a number of avenues. There's a lot of books published, tons of books, both from Microsoft Press. Also, just a lot of books out in the industry about how to get into this business, the different aspects of it, the different roles within it. There's the Development Center, which we host, the msdn.microsoft.com/directx.
So there's specifically a gaming center in MSDN?
Yes, correct, there is. And that has documentation on best practices for Windows. It actually has some of our MVP things, who are people in gaming or getting into gaming, who actually write articles for us. There's a number of articles on windowsgaming.com, which is our website, about how people got into gaming. And it's interesting. You go to an event like this and you talk to people, before and during and after the show, and it's always interesting to talk to people about how they got into the event. I was talking to somebody last night who has a journalism degree, and they get in and they're a game designer now, and they just kind of like tripped into it. It was just a convenience for them, and they ended up in it, and now they're a major designer and a major game publisher.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've heard today is the fact that sort of the future for desktop gaming is going to more and more involve the online experience, and then this topic of the casual gamer. Besides that, or including that, what other things are sort of on the horizon, or do you see in the future for games on desktops?
I think there's, Windows is and shall always be, just by the nature of the platform and the business itself, it'll be the platform for innovation for gaming, and amongst other things. I mean, just software on a whole innovates on this platform. So whatever people are looking towards next, there's a lot of interest right now in procedural animation. There's a lot of interest right now in acceleration of physics with discrete parts in the PC. And actually, a company that's doing discrete physics stuff on a separate hardware part is demoing their stuff here upstairs in their suite. So I think there's some interesting things there. I think that one of the panels that we're having, the business track, is a cross-platform panel, which speaks to how the living room, the console, 10-foot experience, with the controller in hand, and that whole experience, how that ties into a more tactical 18-inch, 2-foot experience at the PC, with high-res displays and a more traditional mouse and keyboard input model. And I think that that's also where people are looking towards the future a little bit, is how do we get all these platforms to align? How do we get the smartphones and the Xbox 360s and the Windows Vistas? How do we get all those things to be an integrated experience in a single game or in multiple games? And how do we tie genres together in that? And I think that panel that they're going to have tomorrow afternoon, as a matter of fact, I think that's going to be really illustrative of that. We've got a lot of people who are very much focusing on that right now.
So speaking of Vista coming up, I don't want to get you in trouble, but is there any way you could open the curtain a little bit and either talk about future versions of DirectX or Vista? Is there any little tidbits you can give us of things to come?
I think that there's a lot of things I wish I could tell you, and I was just making the comment, as a matter of fact, on my weblog, that there's just not a lot of things I can say, which is somewhat frustrating right now, and I really can't wait for the lid to get blown off the product, and it'll be a weight off my chest to be able to talk a lot more. But I can say that people who are interested in creating games for Windows, especially with an eye towards Vista, should really focusing on developing the best game possible they can today. And by that I mean work with DirectX 9, work with the FX framework, work with the HLSL, the high-level shader language, work with picks for Windows. Use the tools that we give you. The SDK is just loaded with samples and white papers and documents, and those teams work very, very, very hard to create samples that the customers ask for. And oftentimes, when I work with companies that I work with, I find them doing things, and they're not. It's like I get so frustrated. There's stuff in the docs, there's stuff in the samples, there's stuff on the Dev Center that will solve your problems. It's not always the magic hat that you can just pull a rabbit out of, but in most cases it actually is a place that they can go to and get a little bit of a leg up and start to make some more forward progress. I'd say so. DirectX is a big one. Visual Studio 5 is coming this year. Everybody should be looking at that. Just working on the latest and greatest, and then just making sure that you support things like limited user scenarios in XP. That's going to be a bigger core scenario in Longhorn, Windows Vista. It's going to take me some time to get through with that one. I've been referring to it as Longhorn for a number of years now. But make the best possible game that you can on XP, and really, the other thing I encourage people too is that look at the market. XP is a hugely popular operating system, and focus on the later operating system. All too often we carry the older operating systems along for year after year after year, and we don't need to. The minimum spec for games these days are such high that you should just target the latest operating system.
Gosh. Is there a way that coming to MSDN or gamers can also learn about what's coming in hardware? Because one of the things you mentioned before we started taping is that the future is also going to hold better and better hardware. How can you sort of prepare for that or expect what's coming around the corner?
I mean, there's a number of ways you can do that. There's we actually hold a conference in, I believe, April or May, known as WinHEC, the Hardware Engineering Conference. That's also here in Seattle. That's a good place where a lot of the OEMs and the hardware vendors come. Not so much focused on gaming, but it's still a good avenue for gaming and game-interested people to come and check out. I would think that just staying abreast of, I'll give you an example. I look at Extreme Tech, I look at AnandTech, I look at HardOCP. Those are some websites that I surf daily. I read Maximum PC all the time, to read about what's coming with multi-core processors, what's coming with SLI GPUs, or what's coming with physics accelerators, or what's coming with newer hard drive innovations that they're doing, and different things like that. I mean, there's a number of avenues you can look at for hardware to get advanced information from those guys. And if you're in the game development community, obviously, I'm sure you have a representative with Intel and ATI and NVIDIA and AMD. Just contact those people, and they're more than happy to show up at your site and show you the latest and greatest.
So what are you playing now?
I bounce around from games quite a bit. Let's see. Well, right now I haven't played anything because I've been too busy doing this show. But over the weekend I was playing some World of Warcraft. I actually went back to playing some Diablo 2. I've been playing a little bit of Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube. And a lot of Battlefield 2 still. So I kind of bounce around between platforms. I have every console, pretty much ever, and I have a number of PCs at home, so I do a lot of LAN gaming, whatnot with my friends. But yep, World of Warcraft, Diablo 2 were the big ones this last weekend for quite some time.
Very cool. And just out of curiosity, have you authored any game titles?
Actually, no, I have not. I have not. My name's in the credits for some, but my role in those was very, very minimal. It was just doing what I do and working with developers and helping them, get to touch with the right people at Microsoft who can solve their problems. And again, I don't like taking credit for these things. It's very much a group thing. We're supported by a very, very hardworking team of engineers in our group who work very hard with these guys, and they're the ones who really should get the credit. And they all actually have been ex-game developers at one time. But no, I actually don't have any games that I'm behind belt. Something I've thought about, but not right now.
Well, and now we know how to get started. So,
yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
Okay, who are you?